This episode is brought to you by Midwest Night Watchers, found everywhere on your favorite podcast platforms.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Piercing the Veil.
Happy Sunday. I think it's
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. All
Got
right.
a lot of people popping in already.
Yeah, we got a lot of people on chat. I was saying hi, and now I'm going to have to slow down typing it in. So we could get that going right away. We got Jackie. Hey, Jackie. We got Blazer, Demaria. We've got Clay. We have Lynn Monèt in chat.
All right.
Whoa. Let's see. I got Jackie already. Heidi was in earlier. She'll probably be popping back in. And Gemini. Welcome in, everybody. Seemed like it's been a while. There's Candy. Hi, Candy.
Here, I'll turn the on-screen chat back on.
Welcome in, William.
Tonight.
Bigfoot Dwarf.
So thank you, everybody, for coming. We have Lynn Monèt again with us tonight, continuing the Omnipresent series, her book series. That is awesome. So I have the links in our description, so make sure you go over there and check that out. She has a new book coming out, which we're going to be discussing tonight, which is going to be awesome. We have some pictures of hers that she's taken, so we'll get into that as the show rolls on. And just thank you, everybody, for coming. And I'd like to reach out and say thank you for everybody that's been praying for me and Jane. And I went through just a little bit of, I don't know if it was digestive or allergies or everything all at once, but it kind of took me out for a few days where I wasn't feeling very good, but I rebounded and I'm doing good. So
yeah, we're wondering it could be a gallbladder attack. We don't know what it was, but it lasted a few days longer than normal. So thank you for the prayers. And he is much better. Thank goodness. Whoop, whoop. So we should be back on Wednesday night also.
We're ready to rock and roll, and we don't want to miss a Sunday or a Wednesday, but things happen in life. So, but here we are, back, ready, renewed, ready to go.
Well, I guess nobody's noticed that your beard's gone.
I think Blazer said the razor got him. So I think Blazer noticed that I have short hair and shorter beard.
The beard's gone. Well, not totally gone, but most of it is gone.
I was going to shave it all the way off, but Jane don't like it when I do that. I don't know why.
I don't like the bald face when you've had that long beard for so long, and then all of a sudden it's totally bald. The dog gets scared and looks at him funny. So yeah, thank you for the prayers, everyone, and we should be back to normal here.
So look for this fall. It'll be back this fall. So maybe by end of summer, even. Who knows how long it'll last? But anyway, this is a good summer trim for to start off the spring, if we ever really have a true spring.
No, I think summer's here.
So I don't know. We might go straight into fall and winter before summer's even over. So enough chit chat. Let's bring Lynn on. We've had Lynn on many times, and we'll continue having her on. And she's always a wealth of information and paranormal and angels and all this stuff that we love to talk about. So we're not all about UFOs and cryptids. We like going into the angel realm and elementals, and so Lynn's got all that going on. So we love having her on, and So let's bring Lynn right up. Hi,
Hello.
Lynn. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. And I did notice your new do and your beard. I was gonna ask Jane who her new man candy is. So,
Little
so you look very handsome. You look nice.
little online touch up with the camera, and everything looks great, doesn't it?
Hey, listen, filters. I wish I could learn how to use the filters. I don't quite know how to use those, but yeah. And I'm back as a brunette. I decided that the blonde thing isn't more fun for me. And as I was telling Jane and Gerald beforehand, we've already got one hot blonde on here, and Jane takes the cake for that. And so, that's all we need. We got a blonde and a brunette and a guy with a fancy new do. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and, getting to talk about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. We love it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I didn't, I'm not on Facebook very, very much. So I didn't realize that you were sick. So thank goodness that that you're feeling better. And definitely.
One of those things. It's almost like when your kids were little and they were sick, that it would spike in the evening. I'd get up in the morning, get all cleared up and feel good. And all of a sudden by the time I started getting in the evening, I started feeling worse and worse. And by the time I was ready to go to bed, it's like when it'd flare up. So it's like I'd spend an extra 5 hours not sleeping, trying to get rid of the junk. And I don't know if it was everything all at once, like I said, or if it was just inflamed gallbladder or what. But we finally got it under control. I'm not saying it's gone, but at least we're managing it.
Well, I'm glad. I'm very, very glad. And plus, they're sprinkling lots of crap on us too. When those misty rains and these weird storms that are coming through and the fog and all of that, do you ever remember that movie that was called The Blob? It's kind of like The Blob moving in and everybody running and screaming because literally they're dumping stuff on us. So I don't know why I'm getting hoarse. I'm going to take a little sip of water.
Yeah, while I was having that bout for those 3 days, it was more than that, but it was actually the 3 days were the worst. I was sitting there thinking, man, I need to go out and mow the lawn and do all this stuff. I was just barely feeling good enough to do that. And I looked out and was like, nah, I'm not going out in that stuff. I could see it in the air, the smoke from Canada, the whatever was coming down along with it.
Yeah, and we still got smoke in the sky. It's just not clear. It's just hazy and just looks dull.
Yeah. You and I were talking before too. I mean, it's like here, I'm in South Carolina, it'll show that it's supposed to be sunny for the whole week. And then all of a sudden you get this notice on your phone that there's a severe weather warning. And it's like, and it's coming in an hour. You know what I mean? And it lasts and it shows, you look it up on your phone and then it shows that it rains exactly for 1 hour and stops and then moves on. And it's like, there's no way.
Right.
They're tampering with all of this stuff, and hopefully, they'll get to the bottom of it and stop some of it soon. They're supposed to be, but anyway, thank you for having me on and letting me talk about my new book. This book has been ready to come out for the last 2 years, but I couldn't get an editor to stay with it because it's pretty scary, and so they'd kind of, chicken out halfway through. So finally, it has been edited, and I'm going to have. Gerald's actually going to help me with the cover, so I can't wait. So we're definitely going to give him credit for that. And so, if you want me to go into it, I've sent you some pictures. It was, I'll go ahead and go into it if you want me to.
Yeah, absolutely. I got the pictures. Whenever you want me to bring anything up, just let me know what pictures you want, and I'll bring them up.
Okay, and this was the townhouse that Weenie Man was in. No, that's the naked ghost. That's the first time I've ever seen a naked ghost. They usually always show up in clothes. Nobody wants to see mom naked when they come in. But I had rented a townhouse while my son was finishing high school and still living with me. And of course, I kind of wanted to downsize since he was moving out after he graduated and he was going to move in with some friends. So I didn't need a big 3-bedroom townhouse anymore. So I started looking for a smaller townhouse, and it just so happened that I gave my 30 days notice, and the landlord had somebody that was coming in right on top of it. And that's the place that I actually found that I rented. So everything was so expensive. And I just wanted a 2-bedroom place for a bedroom for my daughter and I. So I found this place after about a week of looking, and I called to make an appointment to go over. I did the virtual tour, and it appeared that things were remodeled. That's actually my apartment. That red door to the right is mine. The upstairs window and the downstairs window is number 4. That's the one that I was living in. So I made arrangements the following week to meet with somebody there because there was a weekend in the middle. And so I didn't have, normally when I go into a place now, I'll scope it out first. I'll take pictures along the ceiling line, around the fuse box. If there's a hallway or stairwell, I'll take pictures of that. I'll come into the house and say, is anybody here? Because usually they will present, even if they don't think you can see them. And so with this, I didn't really have an opportunity to do that. I contacted the lady and I filled out the papers online to get pre-approved for the townhouse, of which I did. And yes, it is. It did have. Yes, this is the place with the dead cats underneath it. Somebody was just asking that question. As a matter of fact, it did have dead cats underneath it. So anyway, I met with the agent the next week with my to do a quick walkthrough, and I did a very quick walkthrough. Had beautiful French doors on the back, and new wooden flooring that fake wooden flooring throughout the bottom floor. And but I noticed that it still hadn't been cleaned. It needed the refrigerator was still dirty, the stove, the bathroom upstairs was still dirty. Even though they had just had all these construction people through here supposedly remodeling it. And the thing was too about mine is that it wasn't like the one that I did the virtual tour on. Mine had not been totally remodeled like the other ones had. So when I walked in and I saw that, I said, well, I kind of wanted one like what I saw in your virtual tour. And she said, oh, well, we won't have one of those ready for about 2 or 3 more weeks. And of course, here I was having 2.5 weeks before needing to be out of the house that I was in, having it cleaned and everything and good to go. So I had to take it. I'm sorry. They're messing with me because they don't want me to talk about this. So anyway, what happened was I did meet with her and I signed the lease, and I gave her the money, and I was told that I wouldn't be able to pick up the keys until for a couple of days because they were still finishing up a few things. They needed to shampoo the carpets and of course clean the place. And I said that was fine, but I even made a comment to her. I said, what about if I need to exit this lease early? And she just looked at me funny. And I said, like for instance, if this place is haunted. And she looked at me and she said, haunted, really? And I said, yes. I said, I had a situation where I bought a house that was so badly haunted that I never moved into it. And I haven't had a chance to explore this area or this house well enough. And I want to make sure that I can get out of this lease if for some reason there's something like that. And she said, oh, well, I'm sure that the agency will work with you. So I'm like, okay, fine. I trusted that. I should have gotten it writing. I didn't. A big mistake on my part. So anyway, I went home, and of course I'm packing stuff up, and my daughter, told my daughter that we had a place that we would go and we would look at the following, that was like on a Monday. So it was like on a Friday or something. I had a couple of days in there before I could pick up the keys. And so when the day came that I got the keys, I went over with a load of stuff. I had my van packed to the gills with stuff, and I went ahead and I drove over. And when I went inside, I noticed that the refrigerator was still dirty, and so was the toilet. And it was gross. So I unloaded the boxes. I contacted the management, and I said to them, I said, look, it's not ready. It's not clean. I said, you said that it would be clean, and it's not clean. I said, you've got broken drawers in the refrigerator. The handle's coming off of the refrigerator outside door. The oven's not clean. The toilet's not clean. It needs to be cleaned.
Wow.
So they said that they would send somebody out that very next day to clean it, and that it should be done by noon. And I said, well, I hope so, because I'm now down to the wire. I've got 2 weeks to get out of the place that I'm living in, and I have to get my stuff moved. So I continue to bring boxes over, but I put them in the carpeted area upstairs where, it appeared to be clean, but I couldn't put away like my dishes or anything in the kitchen because there was still roach poop and stuff up in the cabinets. And I'm like, oh gosh, and you need to send an exterminator. Well, when you walk through fast, you don't go opening the refrigerator and the cabinets. You know what I'm saying? You just kind of enamored with, the French doors on the back of the house and the nice yards because I had 2 dogs. So anyway, the next day I go over again. And while I'm there, the manager shows up to get the lockbox off of the door. And I invited her in and I said, look, they were supposed to clean this before I started moving in. I said, now I've called. They were supposed to clean it today by noon. I said, and it is still dirty. And I walked her around and I showed her everything, the broken toothbrush holder and all kinds of stuff. And she agreed with me that it had not been cleaned. So she said, well, we'll get it taken care of for you. And I said, yeah, I hope so. I said, because I don't have time to find another place to go. So she left. Someone called me from the office and they said that they were giving my phone directly to the maid or the cleaning lady that was supposed to have come in to clean the apartment so that I can make arrangements with her to come back and clean at a time while I'm there, to make sure so I can point out what she needs to do. So that day, the very next day, I'm hauling stuff over to the townhouse and again, unloading boxes. And while I'm in there, I'm like, you know what, maybe I can start putting away my clothes. So I start putting away my clothes and out of my peripheral vision, I see this little girl standing in the doorway and she had long brown wavy hair, like one of those drawn back with like one of those big bows on the back of her head. She had on this cream colored dress and pinafore with those little button sided shoes, like from the 1800s. And I looked at her and I said, hi. And she looked at me funny. And then she looked over her shoulder like something was coming that she needed to get away from. And she darted off. So I'm like, oh, okay. There's a little girl ghost. I can cross her over. That's no problem. So I left and picked up one more load. I thought, you know what? My daughter's getting out of school in about 2.5 hours, 3 hours. I've got time to go home and get another load of boxes. And I had promised her that we were going to, she was going to get to see the townhouse for the first time after school. So as I'm driving back with the final load before picking up my daughter, I get a phone call from the maid and the cleaning lady. I guess maid's outdated. The cleaning lady. And she said, I know this is going to sound really, really funny. She said, but please do not move into that apartment.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, why? And she said, you can believe it or not. She said, but that place is haunted. And I said, oh, well, is it the little girl? She says, yes, there is a little girl, but that's not the one that's the problem. It's the tall, skinny man with the black eyes that mumbles.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I go back and I'm thinking to myself that I remember being in the kitchen stacking boxes on the counter, not being able to put them away. And I kept hearing mumbling. But because the front window of that kitchen faced the parking lot, I just thought that it was somebody that was out in the parking lot trying to talk low. So, I didn't even think. And I said, what do you mean, the tall, skinny man with the black eyes? And she said, your apartment has a portal in that corner of your living room near the French doors. She said, and I said to her, I said, oh my God. I said, if I move into a different one, maybe I'll have to go into a hotel for a while, but if I move into a different one, would that be better? And she said, no, the whole building is haunted, but your place and the place next door to you, number 3, are the worst. And yours has the portal that they come in and out of.
Oh my.
And, yeah. And my heart just sank and I'm like, WTF, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, there is no way in hell that somebody could possibly have to go through this twice. But the difference is now I had a child and I had to live there. When I bought it, I never moved in. I had a place to go to. So I was able to protect my children from the exposure to that, that dark, malevolent energy. So I pulled over. I was so upset. And I said to her, she says, is there anybody that you can stay with until you have time to find another apartment? I said, look, I've already signed the lease and I've given them my money, and it'll be 30 days before they give me back my money. And I need my money as a down payment
Right.
for, first class and security for someplace else. I said, I've already had the lights turned on and switched over. The cable person's coming to hook it up. I said, I have, unless they're going to let me out of the lease, I have no choice. And she said, I'm sorry, but I cannot come back there and clean the house. I will pay for a cleaning service to come to your house, because what I had done is because she hadn't shown up those 2 other times, I went ahead and I called the cleaning company that I had reserved to clean the place I was leaving, because I didn't have time, and was going to have them come and also clean the place that I was moving into the next day, just in case she didn't show up again. So, and I said, well, I did reserve somebody to come tomorrow to clean, just in case you were not able to. She said, I will meet you and I will give you the money to pay them to clean the house. I'm sorry, I cannot come back in that house. She said, I get feelings about things, and I've told the office about the weird things that happen in your place, as well as that in that whole building, and they laugh at me. She said, they think that they're funny. She said, but I tell them. She said, and you know what? She says, it's not even worth it to me to go there anymore. I hate going to that building, and cleaning any of those apartments, but yours is always the worst. She said, the people that lived there before you were only there for like 3 months. She said, and then they left, so anyway, my heart just sank, and I'm like, what in the hell, what in the hell, so I look at the time and I'm like, damn, I've got to be to my daughter's school like in 30 minutes. So I run to the place and I go into the house and I just unload the boxes and put up some protection around myself and don't say anything. I get out, I go and I pick up my daughter and make an excuse of why we can't go back over to the house. I called my son on the way that I was on my way to my daughter's school, and I said, you'll never guess. I said, and told him what the cleaning lady had said. And he says, you've got to be kidding. I said, no. I said, here we go again. Only this time, I'm going to have to live in it. I also made a call to the management to see if I could get out of my lease and get my money back. And so my son said that he would help me the next day go over and clear the house, to do a blessing on the house. And this was before I was overly experienced. Knowing what I know now, it would not be an issue. It would be like, okay, come on, buddy, bring it on. Is that the best you got? But back then it wasn't, so, and I was still in denial. I'm like, oh God, it just can't be happening again. So I had my daughter go next door and play with her friends, since we weren't going to the townhouse, and had my son go with me to the townhouse, and we walked through and we did a blessing, we cleared it out. But the thing is that what I did learn is that when houses are connected, like if you've got an apartment above you or below you, or your walls are touching somebody else's homes, like in a townhouse, and this was a row of townhouses, there were 10 of them in the building, but there were 10 units, and they went long ways. So all of the walls, they touched one another. So the thing is when you would go in to do a clearing and to sage the house and dragon blood the house, the spirits would just leave and go next door.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they give you a day or two to make you think you got them. They're kind of hiding from you and playing games to make you think that they're gone, and then they can't resist and they pop right back in. So, and this happened. I had to have Bill come and help me clear it a couple of times. But the thing is when we finally had to sleep there, the very first night, my daughter, I have her room set up real cute, and with a little princess theme and her Pokemon and stuff. And she goes in there to sleep, and she comes into me and she said, Mommy, she said, I can't go to sleep. And I said, well, why? And she said, because my toys are turning on in the closet.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, I think there's a little girl ghost that lives here. She's probably playing with your toys, and we will help her to cross over tomorrow. So I went into the room with her. I read her a story. I tried to get her back to sleep, and I left. And then all of a sudden I go to bed, and my daughter's then standing at my bedside, and she's telling me, she says, whoever it is fluffing my hair. She said, they keep fluffing my hair and it's keeping me awake. And I said, okay, fine, crawl in with me. So she crawled in with me. And as I'm laying there trying to sleep, I hear this tapping on the nightstand right next to my head, like tap, 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 tap. And at first I thought that it was condensation coming off of the gutters or because it had also rained.
Right, like a drip.
You know, yeah, type thing. But then it continued. It would stop and then it would start doing it again. And finally I sat up and I said, you need to stop. I said, you have no power here. You have no business here. You need to leave, type thing. And I didn't have a problem anymore that night. But about 2 days later, my son comes over and apparently his deal with his friends that he was going to roommate with didn't work out. So he said, I need to stay with you for a little bit. I'll sleep on the couch. And I said, okay, fine. You can come and sleep on the couch. So he came over and he was sleeping on the couch and he got up one night and he came up to the bedroom and he said, and here's a kid that's 19. Okay. He's like, can I sleep on the floor of your room? I'm like, really? I said, why don't you go sleep in Ashley's room? Ashley's sleeping in bed with me. He says, okay. So he goes and he lays down in her room. And then a little while later, he's back in my room. Can I sleep on the floor of your room? Something keeps playing with my hair.
Wow.
So it kept fluffing his hair. So things like that started to happen. And the thing about it is that when I called the management company and I confronted them, I mean, even backing up, when the management company, when I called them like the third time about the townhouse not being clean, the lady had the audacity to say to me, well, why don't you clean it? And I'm like, I am not going to clean somebody's congealed urine that I don't need, off of the toilet. You know what I'm saying? That's nobody that I even know. I said, when I went to move in here, it was supposed to be clean. And I spoke to her about getting my money back and getting out of the lease. And they told me that she started to laugh at me when I mentioned that it was haunted, although she knew. And and I said, well, when I spoke to the lady that I signed the papers with, she said that you would work with me. And I specifically asked about this issue. And she said, well, she's no longer working with us. Like, okay. So isn't that convenient? But anyway, when the cleaning lady had come over after I'd had the other company professionally clean the apartment so that I could get things settled in there, she came over as she said she would with the money to pay me, to reimburse me for paying the cleaning company. And I said, you know what? We've done a couple of clearings on the house. Would you like to come in and see if it feels any different to you? And she says, okay. And she walks in the front door and she goes, She says, it's still in that corner, whatever it is, there's a portal in that corner and it's still wide open. She said, I'm sorry, I can't come in any further. And she backed right out of the door. Yeah. So I'm like, this is crazy. But the thing is that the management company then ended up, after starting to talk to neighbors, the management company changed over so many times that people often didn't know where to send their rent on the first of the month. And a lot of times they'd get it tied up in the changeover where they had paid the other company and they were supposed to pay the new one that they didn't know existed yet. So there was a lot of confusion with that place. But there was a rancid smell too to the house. I remember putting things away and I remember as a child smelling a dead bird that had gotten killed, and it had that sweet, stinky, rancid decay smell. It's distinct type thing. And so I kept smelling that. And I'm like, what on earth? Maybe it's the adhesive for the flooring that they put down or something. It smells like a dead body in here. And so, and again, everything appeared clean. I went ahead and mopped the floors again, thinking just in case something got spilled that got stinky. And it kind of would come and go kind of thing. It wasn't a constant smell in the room. So when I moved in originally, there were people in number 5, which facing the building were to my right, and the Number 3 on the other side was the one that they were renovating that was supposed to be done in 2 weeks for renting, that I would have taken if I had been able to wait the 2 weeks, but I wasn't. So, I would hear them. They would have a religious service. The walls were so thin, they would have a religious service to the point that some of my things would start falling off of the walls. But I was okay with that because I figured, wow, that's a good thing. Whatever's in here, isn't going to be able to stand that, and it'll chase them out. So there was one day I was outside and I noticed that the lady next door was outside. So I introduced myself and started talking to her, and she said to me, well, we're getting ready to move. And I'm like, well, how long have you lived here? And she said, we've been here about 5 going on 6 months, but we're moving. And I said, oh, I didn't know, that they had a lease for 6 months. I thought you had a lease for a year. She said, well, ours is a year, but we're breaking our lease. And I said, do you mind my asking why you're moving? I said, is this a bad neighborhood or what is it? And she said, well, they never fix anything. She said, I've had standing water in my bathtub for a week that they never came to fix. She said, and then the stair rail and where the stairs are, they came in and took the metal one out and put a plastic one in that's wiggly. She said, they don't come to fix anything. And half the time you don't know, as she said, to who to pay your rent to. She said, and I just, we're leaving. We can't take it anymore. And I said, okay. I said, because I'm just moving in here and I'm kind of curious, about something. And then the lady's daughter came out and the lady had to go inside. So the daughter's standing there. And I said to her, I said, this place is haunted. And she looked at me funny and she said, she agreed with me. She says, we have seen things. We have heard things. She said there was one night in particular that her parents were laying in bed and the wife, her mother, thought that the husband was getting amorous with her. And then when she rolled over, he was sound asleep. So she slugged him. And she's like, hey, why were you touching on me and loving on me? And now you're rolled over to go to sleep now that I'm ready to engage, And he's like, what are you talking about? He says, I've been sleeping the whole time. He says that I wasn't awake. And she said, no, you were cuddling me. You were touching my hair. You were, groping her, in other words, in an affectionate way. And he said, no, I've been sleeping this whole time. So that thing was going from townhouse to townhouse, crawling in bed with people. He was pulling down women's underwear, and some of them he was having sex with. And that's Weenie Man that I got a picture of. If you want to put him up there, you can see him. He's the only ghost that I've ever seen that is naked. So let's see here. He's in this picture. Do you have the one with the outline also?
Yeah, I have both of them. I wanted to show the original first, then this is what you drew.
Right. And then if you go back to the other one so that they know where to look, because you can see him. You can see him as plain as day. And that was taken in the daylight. You see where his hand is covering his Johnson to make it G-rated?
Yep.
Either that or it was cold and he didn't want to be embarrassed. But the thing is that, here he had his opportunity to have his centerfold moment. Here he is going into all these people's townhouses and crawling in bed with people. And now he's got his centerfold moment and he gets bashful all of a sudden. But you can see him. You can see him there. I took that with my own camera. And so anyway, every night I would get that tapping thing next to my bed until Bill came to do a fire clearing, which is some of the things on these opening were some of the things that I use a fire component because the fire sucks in oxygen, and most of these spirits are kind of stuck in that airy, dimension. So anything that even if they don't want to go, they kind of get sucked into the pan because they get sucked into the oxygen. They get stuck in something sticky in the bottom of the pan. So we went through the house and we did that. And these are some of the things that we got. And I think it's pretty obvious what they are. But apparently we didn't get everything. And again, because I didn't know how to put force fields around my apartment, which now I do, you get a bowl of salt, preferably sea salt or pink Himalayan salt, something natural, not Epsom's people. You shouldn't be bathing with Epsom's either. The sea salt and the pink Himalayan salt is better. But and then you take a stone and you embed it into the center and you put it in the far corner of every corner of your house, upstairs and downstairs, if you've got a 2-story and if you've got a basement in that subfloor. But make sure when you do this that all of the spirits have been gotten out, or you're going to be barricading them in with you.
Oh, right.
You know, so you have to, and then of course you salt your thresholds and your windowsills and stuff like that. So that is how you put this, literally, because it's like a force field that goes from corner to corner type thing, that blocks them out. So anyway, Bill and I, during this time too, I had some weird things happen to me while I was living there. Come to find out that there was some deranged psychopath that was an ex-girlfriend of Bill's that was stalking me and was doing things like putting urine all over my parking space. So no matter where I'd get out of my vehicle, I'd have to step in it and walk it in, and feces under my door handles, put liquid glass in my radiator, and almost killed me as I'm going down the interstate at night, not knowing that my latch on my hood was broken and could have flown up going 70 miles an hour.
Wow.
And my van caught fire, but I coasted off and the fire went out by itself. So my guardian angel was working overtime. And of course I can't prove any of that, but so to boot, I had her, adding her 2 cents in there. But back to, do you want me to go on about some of the things that the other people were having?
Yeah. We have one question from Rumble, which I can't bring up on screen, is what state is this in? Where was
this was in South Carolina.
Okay, South Carolina.
Yeah, it's in a city called Greer. It's in Greenville County.
Did you ever find out if there was a cemetery there originally when they put the apartment buildings over it?
Like a poltergeist thing?
Yeah.
I didn't. Like I said, I will go in and I've got all my sensors on and I've got, taking pictures, looking for orbs, looking for indication of misting or something there that you can't necessarily see with the naked eye, which, I can see a lot with the naked eye. But so I don't know, but I know that the apartments were built like in the 1940s. And they had been remodeled not too long ago. And they had, it was low income housing that this people bought from California. And now they jacked up the rent like $1,000 a month, literally, after they remodeled them, and they kicked all the other people out that had been there forever. So there might've been somebody doing a little bit of something on the property, voodoo wise. You never know.
I'm picking up that something in the past, if you look into the past property, there was either a cemetery or something there previously that caused this many different spirits, and a lot of nasty ones too.
Yep. And I would definitely concur on that, because there was an Episcopalian church across the street, a small one.
Oh.
And so I don't know if beyond that, if they had, like a graveyard or something. But the thing is that we did get spirits in the pan every time that we would clear it. But again, those would just be the ones that got caught up in the house. The rest of them would exit and come back and forth.
Right.
It created problems. So there was one night in particular that my daughter had visitation with her dad. So it was just me, in my room, and Austin was trying to sleep in Ashley's room again. And all of a sudden I'm laying there and I feel the covers just so gently pulling down. And I'm like, maybe the dog crawled in bed with me. You know what I'm saying? Because they can wiggle the sheets. So I pull it back up. So I'm laying there and I'm not asleep now. I'm pretending that I'm asleep. And I notice that the dog's not on the bed. The dog's in with my son, who wanted to be protected by the dog. All of a sudden I start to feel again my covers being pulled down. I'm like, okay, how far is this going to go? And it went down to the top of my hip. I had like a nightgown on. Then I started to feel my nightgown being pulled up.
Oh.
And I sat up and I said, oh, hell no, you better get the F-U-C-K out of this room. You do not have the right to touch me, type thing. But it was pulling up my nightgown and trying to pull down the covers on me. So it turned out, which I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit, most of these apartments were occupied by women. When Bill and I had gone on vacation and came back, and I had the liquid glass put in my radiator, and then I ended up having to have that fixed and come home, I noticed that some people were moving into number 3. And I'm like, oh, snap. I wish that I had known that people were even looking at it, because everybody that would come to look at it, I'd warn them. I'd go run and warn them, you don't want to rent this. This place is haunted, and try to, deter them. But these people, I didn't get a chance to. And it just so happened that it was a man and a woman that were roommates that were living there. And I got to know them. And we started talking about things, and he started talking about the fact that the cupboards were opening and closing and banging during the night. And it scared her so bad that she would go sleep at her boyfriend's house and leave him there by himself. And then he was talking about how it would fluff his hair, and that it actually one night grabbed his private parts. He said he said, so it wasn't just groping women and crawling in bed with women. This guy was just a pervert all the way around. He would do that. And the guy, it freaked him out. He knew that I was having some issues with it. So he'd come running over, and I'd give him dragon's blood and tell him what to do with it. So there was one day that he and I were outside talking. Actually, before that, there was two young ladies that were in my backyard, because all of them are connected. And I had a patio that shared with number 3. But they were walking in the backyard, and I went out to see, what they were doing. And they said that their indoor cat had gotten out, and they were looking for it. It had been missing for like 2 days, that they were leaving food out for it because they'd been home for the weekend looking for it. But now it was Monday and they had to go to work, and they were leaving out food and water. They showed me a picture of it. If I see the cat, please to catch it and to keep it for them until they came in. And I said that I would. So I was out later talking to my neighbor and made mention to him about the ladies looking for the cat, and for him to also keep an eye out, for the cat too. And there were these little kittens playing under the car that he was noticing that were adorable. And one of the other ladies apparently was home, comes walking over to us. And I said to her, did you find your cat yet? And she said, no. She said, but I thought maybe it had gotten stuck underneath the building. She said, so I opened up the doors to the building and went underneath. And she said, there are dead cat carcasses underneath that building, all in all degrees of decay.
Oh my.
Yeah, she said there's skeletons. There's some that look like they're mummified. And I said to her, I said, I've been smelling the smell of decaying body wafting into my house every once in a while, and I was blaming it on the ghosts, thinking that they were stinky. And I said to her, I said, well, no wonder. I said, that's a health hazard. I said, they need to do something about that. They shouldn't have cat carcasses underneath the building where cats had gotten underneath and they blocked them in, and they ended up dying underneath the building. So that was really, really gross.
Wow.
Anyway, the cat came back. They got their cat back. And I made mention to them too. I said, they were also moving. And I said, well, how long have you lived here? And they said, well, our year lease is up, but we're looking for somewhere else to go move. And I said to them, well, are you having problems with ghosts in your house too? Because of course, I talk about it to everybody. I don't care, So, and the one girl looked at the other one and she said, see, I told you. She said, and you thought you didn't believe me. And the other one's kind of sheepish and not really wanting to talk about it. But this other girl's like, see, I told you. She said that there was, again, the cabinets were opening and closing, but there was this closet in the hallway that it looked like a closet, but it was a half bathroom, and something kept turning the water on and off in that half bathroom. And she would get in arguments with her roommate about it because each would accuse the other of leaving the water faucet on. So she
Right.
said, see, I told you. And then the air conditioner would mess with the thermostat. They can do all of that. And she actually even saw the ghost of something pass by their front door, passing by their stairwell one day when she was upstairs. That kind of freaked her out as well. So they were glad to move and get out of there, but it was confirmed that other people were also having problems. The people that lived between, so now that's number one. Number two was a young couple with a little girl, and it ended up destroying their marriage, literally, because they can do that. So the wife ended up moving out, and the husband was there, and the little girl would come to visit, but the little girl would start to talk about things that were frightening her at night in the house. And of course, the father is like, oh, well, there's nothing there. There's nothing to be afraid of. You're just being silly, da 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 da. Her toys are turning on and off, just like my daughters were. And so I saw him outside one day, and I had a wagon that was my daughter's that she had outgrown. And I'm like, you know what? Would you like this wagon for your little girl? Because it was in really nice shape. And he said, oh, I would love that. He said, she would love that too. I'll even wrap it up and, put a bow on it for Christmas because it's nice enough. It looks brand new. And I said to him, I said, are you having any unexplainable activity in your house? And he looked at me and he's like, what do you mean? And then my other neighbor walks out from number 3 and sees me talking to the guy from number 2. And I said to him, because several of us have had experiences with ghosts in this building. And he says, really? And my neighbor speaks up and he says, yes, really. And he then went on to tell him about how it was fluffing his hair and had groped him the day or two before. And this guy is like, you're kidding. He said, my daughter keeps talking about seeing things in the house and they're frightening her. And he said, well, I'll be glad, my lease is up in 3 months. I guess I'll be moving too, type thing. Wow. So his little girl was adversely affected, but it just keeps going one by one. And do you want me to, are there any questions or do you want me to?
Is that building still there?
Yes. That's how I got the picture. Yes, I drove back past it, and now they built a second building on the same side of the street next to it. Now I don't know if that one's haunted or not, but I know that the one that you have the picture of is definitely haunted. As the people in number 5 that were the religious people that were moving out, there was one day when I see the mother trailing out. Yes, that's the building. I mean, it looks fine, doesn't it? It's a nice looking place.
Right.
It was on a dead end street. It was nice on the inside too.
And just like you said, the problem is it's just not like it was your apartment. It's the whole complex.
Yes, the whole complex.
Had been something there before.
Oh, I agree with you. When I overheard the daughter and the mother talking, and it was like 9-10 o'clock at night, and I see the one girl rushing out with her children, putting them into the car. And she was saying to her mother, she's like, I'm leaving. I'm not sleeping here tonight. And I could hear the mother saying, well, what's the matter? What happened? And she said, I can't sleep here anymore. She said, I will come back tomorrow and move my stuff out. When the moving people, when everybody gets the U-Haul, I'll take care of loading my stuff on the U-Haul, but I am not sleeping here tonight. If I have to sleep in my car somewhere, I'm not sleeping here. So I don't know what happened with that, but the next morning she came back with a friend. The children were not with her, and no one was in the townhouse. So this girl, I don't know how to explain it other than to give her a name. So Lola came back with her friend and went into the apartment to get her things out to load into the U-Haul that was still waiting for her to finish putting in her part. And all of a sudden I hear this loud thud against the wall. And I'm like, what on earth is that? What the hell, type thing. And all of a sudden I see the one girl running out the front door, and she came over and she knocked on the door and she said to me, there's something in my house. She said, it just threw my alarm clock. She had one of those those round alarm clocks with I call them booby bells. They had with the bells on top.
Right.
Had just wailed that, and it had hit the wall. That's what the thud was.
Oh, wow.
Something had thrown it, and that it missed her head by about 2 inches. And it scared her so bad. She said, there's something in there. You've got to come right now. She says, I need to get my stuff out. So I went over, I had sage, I had, dragon's blood and all of that sort of thing. And I'm like going around the rooms with it, trying to balance things and calm things down while she ushered her stuff out of the house as fast as she could. But they ended up, leaving and not coming back either. So this building was like constantly chasing people away. And it got to the point where there were so many of us having problems. Oh, I have to tell you about this one in number 7. Can I tell you about number 7?
I don't think so.
I don't think you have.
Okay, number 7, I'm outside unloading my groceries from the car, and there's this woman sitting in the parking space for number 7, and she's relatively new moving in there. And I overhear her on her phone saying that she had had a psychic reading from some dude in Jamaica, and that the guy told her that there were spirits in the place that she's moving to, and that they're having sex with her during the night while she's sleeping.
Oh.
I kid you not. I'm like, whoa. So I kind of waited for her to get off the phone, kind of unloaded my groceries slowly, and I went over to her. I introduced myself and I said, listen, I'm not trying to be a nosy neighbor, but I overheard your conversation, and I've been having activity in my house. The guy next door to me has had activity in his house. The ladies on the very end in number 1 that just moved out, they had activity in their house. And I'm overhearing you mentioned that you're having activity in your house. And she was telling me about it, but it turns out that she was an escort, and she and her roommate were doing phone sex out of the apartment that she was living in number 7, which of course was fanning the flames and making things worse.
Right.
So, they were basically feeding them the loosh, of being there. And so literally, I mean, and she had 2 little kids that were over there, adorable children, that came out, and eventually they ended up moving. But for some reason, the hooker, the escort, the police came and arrested her for something, and her kids had to be taken to another relative's house. And then her friend moved out of there as well. But there was a point finally that I said to the neighbors, I started talking. I said, you know what? Let's have a meeting in the parking lot. It's not something that you want to talk about in your home. I said, but we need to come together on this. So there were like 7 of us sitting out in our lawn chairs in the middle of the paved parking lot. And of course, the one guy that has the little girl pulls in. He's like, what are you all doing? And I'm like, well, we're talking about the issues with the ghosts in the building. And he's like, really? And he comes over and brings a blanket or something to sit on. And so he's now involved listening. And then the new couple that moved into number 5, which were 2 pre-med students, they're like, what's going on? And they came over and started to listen. And then we finally got to meet the lady in number 9 and the one in number 10, all of which were having issues once we started talking about them. But people were thinking that they were crazy because, the one lady told me that there was evidence in her panties that something had been having sex with her. And that's how she knew, and that she would wake up with her underwear all the way down around her ankles.
Wow.
So they were, I mean, there was a lot of bad things in there. So I went ahead and I wrote this book to help people understand how to protect themselves when they live in multiple family homes, or even like if you're renting a room from somebody and there are issues, you can stake out your bedroom so that they'll stand at the door and breathe in your door, but they're not going to come in your room. You know what I'm saying? So,
Okay.
And there were a couple of other things that happened as well. I did finally call the third management company after they changed over. And I said, look, I've been here for 6 months. I'm tired of being harassed by the spirits in this building. There are other people in this building that are having problems. And I now had a picture of Weenie Man. So I sent I said to her, I said, she says, "Oh, are you sure that it's haunted?" And I said, "I have a picture of the ghost." So I emailed her the picture of the ghost and I said, "Can you see him?" And she said, "Yep, I can see him." And then I couldn't get them to call me back after that for anything. They kind of evaded me. And and the thing about it is some of these rental management places now, they don't even have offices for you to go to. They've got those rent an office for a day places.
Right.
So all that they have is a PO box where you can go and pick up your keys or drop off your keys with the secretary, but you never can actually physically talk to someone, to help you, especially as they run off with your deposit and make reasons why you can't have it back, that are stupid. But so I wrote this story to kind of enlighten people as to ways that they can protect themselves in a home where your wall is touching someone else's wall. And keep in mind too, there was one point that I did have the apartment completely cleared. I was so proud, but then I let the lady next door, actually she was 2 doors down, come into my apartment, and she carried an attachment in with her. So I had to undo everything and start all over. Yeah, she was actually, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning and my dog was fussing and I thought that the dog needed to go out. So I let the dog out and this lady is standing out on her patio, like 2 patios down from mine. And she's talking on the phone, kind of mumbling. And I hear her say, "Oh, well, my neighbor's outside with her dog. I've got to go." So she hangs up and she said to me, I said to her, well, I first said to her, I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I hope I didn't disturb you." I said, she seemed upset. And I said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Well, when you're finished letting your dog out, would you mind coming over and just standing here while I go in and get my purse and my keys out of the house?" And I said to her, I said, "Yeah, of course I will." And so I walked over and she's literally shaking. And I said to her, I said, what happened? And she said, "You wouldn't believe it if I did tell you, but I'm leaving to go to, my boyfriend's gone on a business thing for a week and I'm going to go sleep at my parents' house." And her parents lived like 3 hours away, but she was going to go. Yeah. So she was going to go to her parents' house and sleep. And I said, "Does it have anything to do with ghosts?" And her eyes got big and she started to cry. And she said, "Yes." She says, "Something keeps pulling down my covers. And I swear that something crawled in bed with me." She said, "When I was trying to sleep, and I won't come back here until my boyfriend is back here with me." So I went ahead and I stepped in with her and she got her keys. But when the boyfriend came back, I get this knock on my door and it's him. And he's standing there. And all of a sudden I see her coming out. Shampoo is still in her hair. She's wrapped in a towel. She's coming out the door following behind him. And he said, he came over and he said, "There's a problem in our house. We need you to come quick." He said, "Can you come quick and, see if you can get whatever it is out or whatever. There's a ghost in our house," type thing. And so I went ahead and I went, next door with that. But then a little while later, the girl came over and then entered inside of my apartment and carried in an attachment that then I had to get back out of the thing. So I vowed I wasn't letting anybody else in my townhouse at that point either once I had it cleared, because they can do that. I mean, they can attach to you or they can attach to somebody and you carry them in over that threshold. So, but I did see a lot of things. There was one night, there was this dark cloaked thing that went right past the door and it kind of grooved in a little bit, but then grooved back out because of those barriers that I had in place. They were working. So, it just, just another crazy event. And where I'm living now, it's clear. They do come through once in a while, but there's nothing that's permanently living here or staying here on the property. So, yeah.
Just orbs floating behind you once in a while. I've seen a couple already floating past you.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure that they are. They, again, as we were talking beforehand, they like being acknowledged, but they don't like being exposed. So I'll be saging and dragon blooding after we finish up our show. But so that's kind of a lot more happened. It went into the book goes into each of the individual occurrences in each of the person's homes. And again, with the management changing over and everything and all of the problems that everybody was happening with that house, they couldn't keep people there. I'm surprised that those girls stayed for the whole year. I stayed for the whole year because I was able to finally fence myself in to my place and not be affected, but it made it worse for everybody else.
Right.
And plus they were afraid. So it just drew them in. And a few of them had a couple of habits, like the lady that was an escort, type thing that, you just never know what your neighbors are doing.
Now, what year was this? Can't remember if you told us.
This was, let's see. I will be here 5 years in November. So I moved out in November of 2020, and I moved in there in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And it is still there, and they're building more of them. So like I said, I hope that they're not haunted. The people that own it, they live in California. They've never even stepped foot in there.
Yeah, I wonder if the entity will go from the old complex to the new ones. I wonder if it'll take over in the new ones.
I have no idea, but I agree with Jane. I think that it was buried on top of something. Everything's built on top of something. We don't know what was here, 1,000 years ago.
Like a bar or a prison, because a normal cemetery, it doesn't sound like people that hasn't crossed over yet. These are very strong to throw things across the room. Mm-hmm. Those are more like poltergeists, very strong, evil presence. So I don't think it was just a normal cemetery.
Well, then to have a sexual ghost, a succubus, or what's the male version?
There's incubus and succubus.
Very strong spirits in that property. So I'm really.
Do you hear that?
Yes, I do.
Do you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
In her voice, do you hear it? It's messing with her.
Really?
Yeah, I hear it darkly.
It sounds like you're. It's still doing it. It's messing with you. So it's not just me that hears it.
Now you're muted, girl. Okay. How about now?
It's even worse. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Am I garbled?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. But Jane's it's messing with her. Do you hear that? Do you hear the talking?
Yes.
I bet when we play this back, when we play this back, it'll be we might be able to hear something.
It could be feedback or something, but I don't know. It's really weird.
I don't know, because when she speaks, it's more of a masculine voice, and she doesn't have a masculine voice, and neither do I.
Try it now. I just turned my mic down. I think it's gone.
Okay. That part is gone, so maybe it is.
Jane?
All right, it's muted. How about now?
Nope, and it even started before she started talking.
You want me to leave and come back in?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Okay. I just there's an orb again just went down next to you.
Huh?
There was an orb just went next to you.
You can come back. All right. Can you hear me okay, Lynn?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they're messing.
It's been on Jane's end, or something was coming through. I don't know what it was.
Well, because of what the content of what she was talking about, they were trying to mask that out, because she's correct.
Still there. Wow.
Yeah,
I wish I could hear what it sounds like.
Oh, that's weird. This is crazy.
They didn't like apparently you were hitting the nail on the head. So they're trying to silence you. So yeah, isn't that dandy how all that happens too?
Wow.
So something just touched my leg.
Uh-oh. Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna send so much love into this room. Love, 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 love. You see anything leaving? Love, 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 love. I'm gonna send love to you, send love to the spirits in the room. Yeah, they're all darting. Some of them are darting out. So anyway, yeah. But you just never know what was built in an area. As we've mentioned before on the show, I mean, even a brand new house can be haunted if it's built in the wrong place, type thing. And there was obviously a portal. I actually took a statue that I had of Mother Mary holding Jesus. I'm not Catholic, but it was a beautiful thing. I keep hearing something whisper. It was this beautiful thing, and I stuck it right where that lady said that portal was in the corner of that room, because I didn't know how to close the portal, but I knew how to, gate off my space so the spirits that were active couldn't go, in and out of my space. So yeah, I'm sure they didn't like that being there either. But knowing what I know now, I mean, it's a waste of their time because I'm not afraid. It's just like, really.
Right.
So yeah.
It's weird. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, when Jane talks, she sounds like it's vibratory, but it sounds like she's like a gravelly kind of growly kind of thing. So anyway, yeah, I've got some things coming up. If anybody, I've got I actually have a show Wednesday with Brian Bowden coming up. I've been asked to be the female host for it's something that breaks off from Ground Zero. It's going to be covering 600 different radio stations throughout the United States and Canada. That's going to be coming up, where I'll be having my own podcast on that platform coming up the end of June. I'm going to have Jane and Gerald on as my guest. Also, I'm going to be graduating the end of July with my Mace Energy practitioner certificate license, whatever you want to call it. So I'll be able to start doing that. I've already promised Jane and Gerald each for free, because they're going to help be my guinea pigs that I can practice on. So, but this stuff really, really works. And I want to mention, it does really work. Recently I had a scare with cancer. I've shared that not with many people, but now that it's passed, but I've been having some issues with anemia, which is now also correcting itself. But I was so tired from the anemia. And if you've ever had anemia before, that kind of tired, it's a heavy tired. It's not a normal tired. I mean, you can go for 2 hours, and then you just have to stop because you can't even lift your foot to go any further. And that's what was happening. And I had my class came up, and I said, listen, I don't know what it is. My blood levels are coming up. It should be normal, but I'm so exhausted. I'm sleeping 12 and 14 hours a day. I said, and I can go for 2 hours, and then I'm tired and I have to stop. I said, it's not depression. I'm showering and cleaning myself. My house is clean, but it's a struggle for me to get my daily activities done because of not having the energy to do it. And she said to me, well, you know what? Maybe it's something somatic. And I'm like, no, I don't think it's somatic. And if anybody, somatic is where a person has an issue, a medical issue that they cannot find a medical cause for because it's more in your mind, but it is very, very real to you. You have the pain, you have the legitimate rashes and things that you break out with those somatic issues. So it is very real to you, but it's not really real when it comes to, yeah, exactly, a medical diagnosis. So I said to her, no, I don't think so. I don't. And she says, well, let's just try something anyway. And she walked me through this technique of part of the Mace energy. I'm closing my computer because I got a kitty up here. And when she was done, I felt great. Like instantaneously, I felt great. So the next day I get up in the morning and I'm chugging along thinking, okay, I've got 2 good hours, to get my dishes done and mop my floors and that sort of thing and take my daughter to school. But then the day went on and I still felt great. So I'm thinking to myself, I made it all the way to 10 o'clock that night before I laid down to go to bed. And I'm like, it had to be a fluke. There's no way. But then the next day it was the same thing. I was energetic and fine. Now I'm fine. So it was something somatic that was leading out that continued feeling of being tired, even though the blood levels and everything were elevated. So you just never know if you do have something that might be holding you back. It could be something like that because there are energetic ridges that are created usually in our childhood years when there's a feeling that happens that we don't like. So we block it. And when we block it, it creates this ridge that we live with our entire life. And like, for instance, if you hear somebody saying, oh, well, that so-and-so really pushes my buttons. What this Mace energy does is it clears the buttons, takes the buttons away. Oh. So you don't have the buttons anymore. And it works with your energy field, not your physical, mental, or emotional fields. It does help your emotional field, but it's with the energetic part that's totally ignored by the medical field because you can't give a pill for it. And because they can't see it, it doesn't exist, and anybody that can see it is crazy. So, but what it does is, energy, everybody's heard somebody say, oh, well, my dog, if my dog thinks that person's okay, then they've got to be okay because my dog, senses things about people. They're picking up on the energy. So we have this energy field, which everybody in this room, of course, knows. And it picks things out of that energetic field that are creating physical, mental, and emotional problems for people. It even is part of what addiction is. So people with addiction usually start out because, again, they're trying to mask out the feelings that they still don't want to feel. And when those cords are cleared, where those buttons can no longer be pushed, then they don't react anyway. And it's not that you don't react with like fear, for instance, because usually it's a fear thing of feeling an uncomfortable feeling. You still have emotions like fear, like if you're walking into the street and there's a bus coming and your fear makes you jump out of the way to save yourself. That's appropriate fear, but you won't overreact on other things, on little things. Right. There was an example of a woman with her daughter that they just did not get along. They were fighting constantly, and the mother came in for counseling or for this Mace energy thing into an office of a practitioner and brought her daughter, but the daughter wasn't really interested in having it done. So the mother is like, oh no, she needs it worse than me. And the rule is that you work on the person in front of you. By them changing the triggers within the mother and the buttons that the daughter was pushing, shifted it so that they didn't have those problems anymore. When the mother came out of the meeting, she was laughing and smiling, and the daughter expected the mother to come out being angry, like, I told him all about you. You know what I mean? But it fixed. When you shift something with somebody else, it creates a rippling effect, and people will respond to you differently because you are reacting differently. Yes. Or acting differently. So that's where this Mace thing comes in. And it's free to Gerald and Jane, of course. And it's kind of like layers to an onion. Every once in a while, you might need to say, hey, I noticed a trigger. There was something that set me off. Reach out to me. Again, it's free for you guys. Come on, kitty cat, get your butt out of my face. So anyway, where you have a little bit of time where you need touch up, but it takes 5 minutes. So it's not a counseling thing where you have to go for months and years to have it done. The idea too with energy and even thinking in the way that we talk, when you have to dredge up your old crap that was painful, you're projecting that out into the future to come back to you. Who in the hell wants to go through that again? So
Right.
it's better that you don't have to go and dredge up all of the post-traumatic stress or who so-and-so did to you. You don't even have to tell me that. I just walk you through a way that you can release the ridges yourself, and you will instantaneously feel better. And there's no denying it. I've had a couple of people say, oh, well, I tried it and it didn't work for me. That's because they didn't get to the core issue. There's always that core issue that has to be dealt with. And sometimes it takes more than once to do it or to keep trying until you finally get it. But once that core issue is pulled out, it's like popping a zit. You got to get the whole thing out for it to heal up. But again, it's not something where you have to sit for years spilling your guts. You know what I'm saying? Talking about the done me wrong kind of thing. So, and it's wonderful. And that lady and her daughter ended up having a wonderful relationship after that, because it was the mother's perception of what the daughter was doing that shifted. So they were able to have a much better relationship after that, which was a good thing. So,
because a lot of times it's just like when we go to the doctor, a lot of times they treat the symptoms and not the actual core of what the problem is. And I think that's what you're getting to.
Exactly. It treats the core of the problem without drugs, type thing. And these are the parts, hopefully the medical field will start coming into embracing that part too. But instead they're medicating people thinking that they're crazy or mentally ill if they start talking about stuff like what I'm talking about. And of course, Big Pharma wants to keep people sick because then they make money. And so that's why we're being fed the food and given the vaccines and all of the stuff that they're giving us to set us up for sickness. There's been a cure for cancer probably for 10 years, but they don't want that cure for cancer to come out, because Big Pharma and their stockholders make a lot of money off of cancer when somebody's sick.
Yes.
So, and they run with a pill. I mean, even if in the mental hospitals, if somebody has schizophrenia or some other issue, you run and get a pill because they're hallucinating. No, maybe they're gifted. Maybe they're an empath. I mean, I've seen that before, even in there, doing a rotation through the with my class. Then you get the older people that are getting ready to pass, and they start talking about seeing things. Oh, that's a hallucination. So they're getting the Buspar and the Seroquel and that sort of stuff shoved on them. Whereas the people with mental issues are getting the lithium and the Zoloft and the Ativan and all of those sorts of things for theirs. And everything is a pill. And then you've got to take a pill for the side effects of the pill and a pill for the side effects of that pill.
Yep.
And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So this is a way for you to manage it yourself. And not that you should go off your medication without talking to your doctor first. But I'm telling you, I have so much faith in this that when I had a practitioner come to me that said, hey, would you like to have a free thing? And I'm like, well, I don't really need it. I went through counseling and dealt with all of my childhood crap and went to parenting classes so that I wouldn't be my parents when I had children. And they said, well, let's just try it. Lo and behold, I did. I mean, there were some traumatic times that when I would think about those times, it automatically put me in that flight and fright mode, just like post-traumatic stress. It would hit a trigger and I would get that desperate, needing to run, and that trauma, my heart rate would go up. But now when I reflect on that same exact incident, it's like I'm not standing in the room anymore. I'm standing outside of the room looking through a window. So I'm looking at the situation happening and I'm seeing me in there, but the feeling is, oh, isn't that terrible that that's happening, type thing. But I'm not having that anxiety or that rush of flight fright mode anymore. So it doesn't affect me that way. You can't unforget something that you've seen.
Right.
You can't change that. but you can change the way that you react to it, or the way that it makes you feel, by releasing that core and those ridges, to help people. So it's really good for people with post-traumatic stress, and stuff like that too. So I'm hoping, according to, and of course I'm not a practitioner yet, but I will be. I'm just in the very, very end phases of it, where I'm going to start doing my internship with a teacher. So yeah, I mean, what have you got to lose? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So yeah, and again, it works great. I swear by, that's why I wanted to do it. And this is going to be probably the way that coming in the future, more people are going to be treated. Another thing, people, red light therapy. Red light therapy. I swear by it. It works wonders for pain. It works wonders for itching. It works wonders for a lot of things. It really, really works. And I think that it's going to be another new thing that, of course, the medical field poo-poos. You know what I'm saying? The red light therapy. But if you have ever tried the red light therapy on anything with pain, you will see that it works like within 30 seconds. Literally. I have I've gotten, you can get them also a lot less expensive online, like from Timu, although now they've gotten more expensive with all the tariffs. But I got like a cap because my hair was falling out. So I got this red light cap to help the hair from, falling out, and it works. So, and I've had, some itching in some places that I put it on there, and lo and behold, it takes it away. And people are talking about how it works with the mitochondria, which is inside of your cells, to help them heal themselves. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So that's another thing too. You can go natural with that. So hopefully, and a red light's another energy thing, it taps in with different things, and it's okay to look at it too.
Right.
Not always directly, but it works with things in your eyes to help your vision and all kinds of stuff. So it's all good things.
Yeah. Plus it's good for you. It regenerates your body. You can relax in the evening under red light, not LEDs. Don't get the LEDs or any of that other stuff. It has to be the incandescent that puts out the right frequency and waves for your body.
Yep, that's true. There are some people that are even, laying down at night and they have the big, almost body full length ones, and they swear by it as well. And there are even people saying that it's reversing the aging in their skin and their faces. So, hey, whatever works, you know what I'm saying? So that is something that is also important too. Yeah.
So tell us about your shows coming up. You're regular on Cisco's, and then you got a new platform coming out that you're going to be a guest on. So tell everybody about that also, please.
Yeah, the last Sunday of every month I'm on with Cisco, either as a host or a guest. On the first Monday of the month, I'm on with Michelle Brandenburg, who has a show also, which I'll be posting on my website, the links and things, so that people can find. She's a medium. She's excellent. Everybody's going to love her and want to follow her as well. Also, I mentioned the radio show coming up, and I'm going to be on Brian Bowden's show coming up on Wednesday, and I've got something else coming up. I'm going to be at an event on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, where I'll be a speaker for a CreepyCon in South Carolina here. So I've got quite a few things going. I'm in the process of revamping my website because I want to add a store to it, and also add a calendar so that people can see where they can find me and stuff like that. And if they want to book me, then they can book me there as well. But and I'm also currently writing the 4th book in my Omnipresent series, because number 3 is going to be coming out as soon as the cover's done. And so that should be shortly. And hopefully within like the next week to 10 days or so, because it's good to go otherwise. But I'm also into the 8th chapter of Omnipresent Gnome Place Like Home, which is the story about the Fae, about how I met Bob, for that matter. And then I'm going to be, come on, kitty cat. And then I'm going to be writing a book with that one of You Don't Gnome Me, which is going to be talking about the beautiful things that I've learned about crystalline cities in the ocean, about the bioluminescent beaches, the night fae, and some of the different things with that. Some of the little things that they've shared with me, talking about all of that. I'm also going to do a set of children's books to make them aware. A rock is just not necessarily a rock. It might belong to somebody, and everything has energy. Everything has energy. Even steel in your car has energy. Be nice to your car. You know what I mean? Everything has its own molecular energy. So, but to teach kids to, admire the flower, don't pick it. Let it serve its time, but don't pick it. Just admire it, type thing. And don't go moving rocks. And if you're in a creek, you lift up rocks. There are things that live under there, salamanders and things like that you need to leave alone, and leave their house alone, and have some respect, type thing. So I'm hoping to do that, and then a book, and Bob, of course, will be in those books of the series. And then I'm going to do one final one after that. I haven't decided the name yet, but I'm hoping that this next book, Omnipresent, Known Place Like Home, it should be finished for Christmas. Definitely should be finished for Christmas. And so, I'm looking forward to having that come out as well. And so I've got a couple of things on the back burner. Nice.
Plus you've been on Coast to Coast and with George Norrie, and that's exciting. So people can go check that out. Gaia, right?
Yes, I'm streaming on Gaia on Beyond Belief with George Norrie. And of course, I've been on a guest multiple times on Coast to Coast. I'm actually going to be booking to be on Coast to Coast. I hope soon, if we can get that worked out. Right now, they've kind of changed personnel a little bit. So it's kind of, a different way to get a hold of people. But I'm hoping, and I'll share that with you guys as well, when that happens. So, I'm hoping to get on with the new books that I have.
Nice. Well, I think this is a good time to end, Lynn. I think we've reached our conclusion of what we want to talk about, or at least most of it. There's never an end, I guess, of these stories. They keep going and going, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I need to smudge the house. I've had something touch me multiple times on my leg.
Oh my.
So yeah, it could be. Huh?
How do I sound?
Right there, you're good.
Great. You're good.
Wow.
They did not like you telling on them. They did not like it. Yeah,
wow.
now it's back to normal. But
good.
It wasn't
I'm
before.
glad you're back.
So anyway, I'm glad you're back too. But definitely, I'll make people will be crawling underneath their partners when they sleep tonight if they hear tapping next to their nightstand or feel their covers coming down. So yeah, definitely. Anyway, thank you so very much for having me. It's always such a pleasure. You guys are like family to me. And I will be in touch about the MEM here in the next couple of weeks or so. Okay. And and then you let me know what you think, because I know that you'll tell me like it is. And that's what I like.
All right, great. Well, don't go anywhere. We'll just say goodbye to everybody in chat. And thank you all for coming. It was definitely a wild ride with whatever experience Jane was going through or affecting our equipment. And most likely it was something subject matter of the show. So something is telling us.
Well, due to the poster fell behind me.
It just really? Wow. I'm glad I'm over here in this room and not over there.
Yeah, right there. It's hanging. Oh my.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. We're used to. We'll clean it out.
I'll pray for protection.
Okay, good. All righty. Sometimes they come around when you're talking about them. It can't be helped. So, and I send love and light to everybody too. Also, I'm blocking them from coming into anybody else's house during this conversation. So, so don't worry. They're not going to be coming into the chat room and following people home.
Yeah. That would be something, wouldn't it? Be able to attack people through the chat.
Now, let's not give them any ideas.
You brought it up.
Yeah, no, I know that. I just thought about that because as soon as you said that, I heard something moving over here, and I'm like, "Is that the cat?" And I'm like, "There's no cat over there." Yeah,
I saw a lot of orbs tonight. They were behind you. They went next to you. They were right in front of you going up. Yeah, I saw quite a few. I rewatched this. Yeah. I normally don't rewatch our shows, but I'll just try not to watch us and I'll rewatch yours. Interesting show.
Thank you, everybody. We love you. You guys are just like family, just like Lynn is family to us, and we love having her. She's a regular on our show. We have her back all the time, and we will get Lynn scheduled again, and hopefully you guys will see us on Lynn's stuff that she's doing. So that we're excited about that, and hope you guys have a great rest of your night and weekend, and I hope your week starts off great and fantastic, and stay positive. Keep looking up.
Woohoo!
Night, everybody.
Good night. Much love.